What can I say? That speech was pretty incredible. Um, Mary Fisher she did a really good job, you know, bringing awareness to the topic. I was definitely trying to not get emotional, especially toward the second half. This is probably the first time I've heard the speech in its entirety, and I can understand why it's regarded highly in the archives of great American speeches. Mary Fisher used Aristotle's concepts of ethos, pathos, and logos throughout her speech to elicit empathy, understanding from the audience, and to raise awareness of this deadly condition. Um, Ethos relates to the speaker's ability to provide credibility towards their argument by showing experience or giving some credentials that are relevant to the topic. Fisher had firsthand experience of the virus, as she was HIV positive at the time. And she came to learn how the rest of the infected population was, disregarded. And it's not lost on me that a Caucasian woman from privilege was the one who mainstreamed awareness of something that disproportionately affected various minority groups. But her audience was Republican politicians from the 90s, right? Who had up until that point ignored or denied the issue altogether. Um, I think it's probably only because of Fisher's wildly different background from the broader HIV awareness movement that she was really able to establish any sort of rapport with this particular crowd. Um, and so pathos is related to a speaker's emotional engagement of the audience. In order to get a message across more effectively, a speaker wants the crowd to be emotionally invested in the presentation and to create a personal connection to the audience. Mary Fisher did this throughout her speech, reiterating how AIDS and HIV not just limited to the marginal crowds, but also has ability to impact those who believe they were safe, like herself. She shares devastating realities of potentially having children growing up without parents. It doesn't really matter where you come from. This is a topic that permeates through all social classes. Uh, I guess unless your father was a billionaire who died in an unregulated submersible. Sorry. Finally, we have logos, which is the concept of supporting your argument using evidence and reason. As Fisher's main goal was to raise awareness for HIV and AIDS, she needed to convince the audience to, care. she, this was mostly done through publicizing, her personal experiences and trying to reason with the audience. She reinforced the idea that as a society we need to stand up for each other and especially the marginalized. Otherwise, we won't have the support for when the time comes when we become marginalized ourselves. This is probably best demonstrated with the quote from the World War II concentration camp survivor Martin Niemöller, which still sends a shiver down my spine every time I hear it. Personally, I tend to have more of an appeal to arguments that are focused on tangible concepts and empirical data, something that can be verifiable and have some sound reasoning behind it. So logos is quite important and probably most important from my perspective. However, credibility also plays a large role in how I might perceive a particular argument. Half truths and misinformation are rampant, and having a credible source is probably just as important as the information you're getting. Um, Realtors are the first thing that comes to mind when I think of a persuasive career. Their job isn't really to find you a home, it's more to convince you to buy one, which I think is an important distinction because ultimately, whatever happens after the home is sold, it's not necessarily their concern. They're there for the commission. This is Riv. See you later.